Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Monday. Welcome to Monday Minutes. Brief look back to last week. The Fed is not thinking about tapering. The Fed is not talking about tapering. We know the Fed is now talking about the potential for a discussion around tapering. A number of committee members, if the economy continues to exhibit rapid progress in the weeks and the months ahead. The reality is, look, if we go back to the beginning of January, we see the repricing in the rate market. Tapering discussion was part of that dialogue to start January, the Georgia runoff election, the repricing that we saw in the first quarter of 2021. We know at some point the Fed is going to taper these asset purchases. If you look at it, and we've laid out a timetable, the reality is the Fed is still operating as if we're in emergency conditions right now. Certainly nowhere near where we were in March of 2020. If we look at the housing market, the Fed is controlling one component of the froth that we're seeing in that market. We see supply imbalances, and we certainly see migration, people moving from state to state. The Fed does control the rate component of that. And when you look at the Treasury market, certainly performing and functioning, smooth market functioning, with the exception really of one poor 7-year auction that we had earlier in the year in February of 2021. Certainly conditions are far better now than they were back then. The reality, though, if you look at markets reacting since the news last week with the minutes, late last week we did have Philadelphia President Harker come out and agree with Dallas Fed President Kaplan that the Fed should engage this conversation sooner than later. But if you look at the timeline practically, the Fed has to begin talking about this notion of tapering. From there, they have to move to a vote. Once it's voted, it needs to be communicated to the marketplace. And then they said they're going to give lead time. So the reality is they're unlikely to actually physically taper in 2021. That takes us into 2022. And then if you look at that monthly timetable from there, the reality is we're looking at late 2022 before the Fed gets back to home base. So the market short term, if you look at the rate market, 10-year yields still hovering around 162. That's where we had gotten out to when we had that mini flash crash in February of 2021. We still see the range right now in 10-year yields to be roughly 150 to 175. Waiting on more information, call it more inflation data. This week we'll get core PCE, which will be the highlight on Friday. And then certainly the employment numbers weighing in the weeks and the months ahead will be critical in terms of what the Fed is thinking at this point. Wishing everyone a great week and a great holiday weekend. I'm Greg Faranello, head of U.S. rates for AmeriVet Securities.